Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's professional development session. My name is Kelsey Huber, and I teach 8th grade ELA here at Indiana Digital Learning School. I'm happy today to have the opportunity to go over the 4 different blended learning models with you all. We are going to go through each of these. There's going to be some quiz questions along the way, so make sure you're following along. And if you have any questions at all during today's session, feel free to just go ahead and throw those in the chat. I will definitely be checking the chat as we are going through our different models in the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started for today. So, as I said before, there are 4 models, right? The first model is going to be the rotation model, and we're going to talk about each of these in depth. So I just want you to realize what the 4 models are. So up first, rotation. Number 2 is the a la carte. Number 3 is the flex, and number 4 is the enriched virtual. All 4 of these have similar components, but they are really different, and they all offer students a very unique online learning experience. So obviously here in 2020 this year, we've all kind of been thrown for a loop with COVID, right? But I really feel like online education, learning to, be an online learner is truly a 21st century learning skill for our students today. They have to understand how to navigate online learning in order to succeed, because it's not going away, right? We as teachers have kind of been thrown into this new predicament where we have had to teach ourselves, not just have our students had to, try to learn to adapt, but we as teachers have had to do the exact same thing. And so it's important that we begin to utilize these different blended learning models in order to help our students become true 21st century learners in the online education world. All right, so let's get to it. Our first model that we're going to be discussing today is the rotation model. It's exactly what it sounds like. Students are rotating, right? So this can either be on a fixed schedule or at the teacher's discretion, all right? So what I mean by a fixed schedule, hey guys, every 10 minutes, we are going to be rotating, okay? And so that's kind of really up to the teacher, or maybe, so the teacher gets to decide how many minutes, or it could be at the teacher's discretion. So with the rotation model, oftentimes there will be a teacher-led small group session. So it could be, whenever that teacher finishes up with that small group, then they are going to rotate. So it's either on a fixed schedule or the teacher's discretion. Among learning modalities, at least one of which is online learning. Okay, so benefits to the rotation model. You don't have to modify an entire schedule. You can easily kind of work this into your day. Okay, it's really easy to implement, and this is a great stepping stone for blended learning. It's centered on learning, not so much technology. And so, if you are a school that doesn't have a lot of computers, or, you're run into a lot of Wi-Fi or tech issues, the rotation model might work really well for you. Things to consider with the rotation model is you must have really good classroom management, and I will talk about that more here soon. What I mean and why classroom management is so important with this is because your students are going to be at different places learning about the same content, but they are all doing it in different ways. So we have to make sure that these students are staying on task, right? It's going to take you some time to really perfect. You're going to need to model it with these students. You're going to take a lot of time to practice and really perfect it. So within the rotation model, there are actually going to be 4 submodels to that. I apologize. So 4 submodels here, and each of these are going to be just a little bit different. So up first is the station rotation. Station rotation is pretty simple, exactly what it sounds like. There's a great graphic here on the right hand side, and you can see the different stations kind of in action. So we've got station 1, where this is going to be small group teacher-led instruction. Okay, so the teacher is leading a small group of students here, and she or he would be going through the lesson, the content with them, right? Station 2 is going to be small group, working, independently on an activity. They could be working together as a group, okay? Or you could even have, students partnering up here for that station, but they are collaborating together, working together on that. And then station 3 is going to be online instruction with devices. Now, all 3 of these stations are going to be held in the same classroom. So it's important to realize, you've got to definitely set your room up prior, and you will need to have only enough devices for just that one station. So here in the picture we have, 9 computers. So you have 9 students working on that online instruction as one of the stations. This is going to allow you to have more opportunity to provide feedback to students. Working with small groups is always nice too, right? We are better able to see what our students need. And not everyone has to have a device. So if you are short on devices in your school, the station rotation is a great choice. Up next is the lab rotation. Maybe you don't even have devices that you can check out. You just have a computer lab. The lab rotation would be for you. So station rotation, the lab rotation would still consist of the 3 different stations. We have the teacher-led instruction, we have the small group, and now we just have the online instruction in a computer lab. So your students are actually leaving the classroom and they are going into the computer lab. Now this works actually really well in the elementary classroom, or even in high school, middle school, if you have like a computer class that students are able to go to. You could, have that computer teacher on board, and you guys are cross-curricular here. You guys are working together to teach the same concept both in the computer lab as well in the classroom. If you're not teaming up with the computer teacher, you would need to have another paraprofessional or another teacher in that lab, obviously, just to supervise. This is also a great opportunity for other departments to work together. Okay, so I myself, being an English teacher, I often work with my social studies teacher very closely, and you could have your small group and your teacher-led group. Maybe you and your social studies teacher want to partner up your classes, and one is doing the teacher-led instruction, one is leading the small group, and then you've got your computer teacher leading the online instruction. Again, not everyone has to have a device the entire time for the lab rotation. Up next is the individual rotation. So this is based upon student need. It's much more individualized. So as the teacher, you really need to understand your students' needs. Not all students may go to all stations. Maybe you really, need to keep those 7 to 8 students that are really struggling. They need to stay with you for that teacher-led instruction. For the, over half of the class. So this is just going to allow you to, the students are kind of moving at a pace that you have set for them. So hey, group A, you guys are going to be going back and forth with group B, but group C, you guys are staying with me the entire period. So still the same rotations or the stations as the previous one, where the online instruction is happening in a computer lab as well. The last one here for the rotation model is the flipped classroom. So in the flipped classroom, the students are actually participating in online learning off-site. So teachers are oftentimes, recording their lectures and uploading them for students to listen prior to coming to the classroom. Okay, so once they get into your classroom, they are there to discuss the material that they've learned, and for any type of projects, discussions that they may want to have. Okay, this is really going to allow you to have more time in class to really get down to the gritty of what your students have learned. Okay, so what did they think about the lecture? What type of questions do they have? It's going to allow you to have more time in class for those classroom activities. Now, this will require enough devices for each student, both at home and school. All right, so let's take a moment here to use our polling tools to select the correct answer. Okay, so your question is, a model of instruction in which students rotate to a computer lab for the online learning station is called what? Is this considered our flex, our lab rotation, our enriched virtual, or the station rotation? Which one of these do students rotate to a computer lab for the online learning station? Get your polling tools to use. A few more seconds here and I will reveal the answer. All right, very good. So we started off with an easy question here, but this will help you to kind of get into the swing with using those polling tools. So yes, the correct answer here was B, lab rotation. So when the students are going to the computer lab, this is considered our lab rotation. All right, one more. This one's harder. So, my students' primary delivery of content and instruction takes place online, off-site. Students come to my class at a brick and mortar building to receive face-to-face help, enrichment activities, and projects. Does this occur in A, the station rotation, B, lab rotation, C, individual rotation, or D, the flipped classroom? So their primary delivery of content is online, off-site. Outside of the classroom is where they are, receiving that material and the content. But then they come to the brick and mortar building to receive face-to-face help, enrichment activities, and projects. Which type of blended learning model is this? The flipped classroom, all right? So flipped classroom, students are, getting that material at home in their own time, coming into your class, and they are reviewing it, discussing it, completing activities over it. Very good. Those of you that selected D, flipped classroom. All right, our next model is the a la carte model. So this is a course that a student takes entirely online to accompany other experiences that the student is having at a brick and mortar school or a learning center. Okay, so with this model, the teacher of record is an online teacher. Okay, students can complete these courses either on site at the brick and mortar school, or they can be done completely independently at home. Now, this is really common in upper grade levels. These students must be very, very accountable, okay, because they really are, having to be responsible for completing this work on their own, especially considering they do not actually meet with their teacher. Their teacher is online. They are not having those face-to-face interactions with them. Okay, so oftentimes this is used for credit recovery. Any type of unique courses, for example, language courses. Maybe your school is unable to offer, French. I know at an old school I taught at, we had a French teacher leave, right before school was about to start, and there were all of these students that signed up to take French. Couldn't find a teacher. What did they do? They put them into these online courses, okay? Any type of technical courses, this could be used as well. Now, the benefits to the a la carte model is that it's really easy to implement on a student by student basis. It is definitely more self-paced, and it's going to help prepare those 21st century learners for online courses in college or even in the workforce. And especially now after this year, I am certain that more and more colleges and, technical schools, all of that, they are going to be moving into the online education world. This is going to help prepare our students for that. We obviously have to watch out for this. Just keep in mind, the students that are taking these courses, they must be accountable. They are responsible for their learning with this. And obviously, it is going to require you to have enough devices for each student that is taking those courses. Any questions so far? Anybody have any questions about the a la carte model or anything that we've discussed prior? All right, so easy one here. True or false? The a la carte model requires the online teacher to hold weekly face-to-face meetings. The a la carte model requires the online teacher to hold weekly face-to-face meetings. Is that true or is that false? Does the online teacher have to hold weekly face-to-face meetings with this learning model? True or false? Those of you that selected false, very good. Nope. So their teacher of record is completely online for this course, and they do not have face-to-face meetings with them. All right, so our next learning model is the flex model. And the flex model is where students are really in control of their own pace and path. Now, there is a teacher on site for this, so they are having those face-to-face meetings, okay? It does take place in a brick and mortar setting, and students are receiving the content virtually, but they're having face-to-face tutoring and enrichment activities throughout, okay? Now, the teacher involvement really just depends upon the program. And it depends upon the school and the resources that they have available. You will need to have enough devices for each student, both at home and school, okay? So with the flex model, some teachers, it's really going to be teacher discretion how many times they are meeting, but there is going to be someone there for those students because this is taking place in the actual school building. So if students are having issues, questions, anything like that throughout the online learning, they have a teacher there that they can ask. And that's the good thing about this. You may have some students that go through this completely independently. They don't ask any questions and they ace it and they finish it super, super quick. You're going to have other students that are going to struggle and they are going to need your help with this model. It really is just student dependent. It depends upon where they are in their learning, especially also, the content that they are learning. If it's something they're familiar with, obviously they'll probably be okay. If not, they are definitely going to be, relying on you more to help them out with this. The last model in our blended learning models is the enriched virtual. Now, the enriched virtual is where students do have required face-to-face sessions with their teacher of record, though they are not, it doesn't have to be every day of the week. So students are really completing their coursework independently, away from the face-to-face teacher, but then that teacher may say, hey guys, you know what, we're going to have a face-to-face meeting on Thursday to discuss, your upcoming test. And so this is really most customized to accommodate a more personal learning experience. You may have a face-to-face meeting alone with a teacher, not an entire class, because you might be further along in the content than another student. But this allows educators to teach more students, but you can still really build those meaningful relationships. So at one school that I read about doing this, was, the teachers held their face-to-face at a coffee shop in the evening, and, the students were able to come in and schedule a time with that teacher to review everything from that week. This allows you to still have that one-on-one relationship with your students, even though you are probably going to be teaching more. Students are still receiving that face-to-face support, so they're still getting it even though they are really doing the learning independently outside of the brick and mortar school. This is an awesome opportunity for students that need another option outside of brick and mortar. We are, especially now, we are getting to the point in our world where brick and mortar school just isn't really for everyone, for every student. And this is an option that those students have where they can take every single class virtually. But yet they're still receiving that support that they need with those, weekly face-to-face sessions. Now, this is obviously going to require every student to have their own device at home with them. So, your school would need to make sure that you have the technology available to you. All right, so polling question. Which of the blended learning models requires students to be accountable for their learning? Students have to be accountable for their learning. Does this occur in the a la carte model, the flex model, the enriched virtual model, or all of the above? Which of the blended learning models requires students to be accountable for their learning? All of the above, of course, right? With each of these models, you guys, the students are receiving a lot of their content virtually online. They're only coming in and meeting with the teacher to discuss, to, receive those enrichment activities, to do more hands-on activities and projects. So the students are really, really in control of their learning. They have to be held accountable. So, making sure that they are responsible enough to do well in these online courses is definitely something to consider prior to, just throwing them into these types of courses. Any questions about today? Any questions over anything that we have covered at all? I am happy to answer them. If you think of some questions after this, you can email me as well. My email is kehuber@k12.com. And I do have a wonderful quote that I want to leave you with here today. So I read this and I just thought, wow, especially for today, even though this quote was from 2015 or 2006. Somebody once said, you're talking about a new paradigm for both teachers and students, no longer defined by the four walls. A school's use of technology must transform learning. I love that second part there. A school's use of technologies must transform learning. No longer is technology, just like a part of our learning. It is truly, truly transforming it. And our students are aware of this. And today in 2020, it is showing us just how important it is that we are all able to, understand this online learning world, and that we are able to, make these necessary changes to our classroom to prepare our students and to turn them into true 21st century learners. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you so much for coming today, and I will talk to you all soon. So long.